Hi everyone, I'm glad to be here. So I'm Nicolas Telera. I work at Octo technology, and welcome to Demystifying the Google Assistant for Android developers. So let's share my screen. I have only one screen, so I won't see the chat. Okay, so the Google Assistant. Do people know about it? What it is? How to use it? What for? Where? Is it a mobile thing only? I didn't even want to make a poll about that because, well, yeah, of course, everyone knows about it. As for Siri on iOS, it has become a common thing, and you don't even need to be tech to know about it. But how does it work? As in, can I build stuff for Android? What kind of stuff and how? Can you answer these questions? Well, if you're here, I guess not. And until recently, I couldn't either. I've always found the Google Assistant kind of mysterious from my developer perspective, and I wanted to know more, so I went and checked it. And guess what? It's pretty accessible and fun. So that's why today I can tell you that, well, yes, you can build stuff for Android. And by the way, this stuff is called interactions. So let's find out how. In order to build interactions with the Google Assistant, we're going to go on the Actions on Google platform. This platform will let us define and fulfill what's called actions that any user can invoke through the Google Assistant. So that when I say, Google, here's my request, the assistant will trigger an action that holds a specific intent and has a corresponding fulfillment that processes the intent. Let's see how these actions work from up close. First thing when you want to build interactions on Android are the app actions. App actions are interactions that you can use to extend your application reach into the assistant. They act as triggers to directly launch a specific feature of your app by specifying parameters in your vocal command. See them as simple orders you give to the assistant, like in this example. The user says, order pizza from example pizzeria, and the assistant simply launches the example pizzeria app. Note that they are currently in developer preview. So how does it work? When I say, Google, here's my request, the assistant is going to match the request with an intent that I've registered in the new actions.xml file inside the resources of my app. This will trigger a deep link into my app that I will have to handle as any other deep link, so that I can directly launch my feature in response. Let's look at this app. I have a main activity with 3 buttons. Each button launches a specific activity, feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3. Each feature has an associated title, subtitle, and image. What I want to do is that when I say, Google, launch my feature number 3, the specified feature is automatically launched. So let's see a bit of code here. Here's how my actions.xml file looks like. We start by specifying an intent name. Note that with the app actions, we are limited to a set of built-in intents provided by Google for common uses like get order for a food delivery app, for instance, or start exercise for a sport app. But here we're just going to use the most generic intent, which is open app feature. Then we have to specify that the fulfillment mode is a deep link. We'll see why we have to specify that later on. Since it's a deep link, we describe the URL template, which contains our feature name parameter. And we describe our parameter mapping for the deep link with the intent parameter and the URL parameter name. Finally, we must reference our actions.xml file in the Android manifest within a metadata tag. Note that in order to be able to test our action, we will have to upload our app as a draft to the Google Play console, and that you can't upload actions developer preview. But you can just add the tag locally after that you uploaded your project, so that's not a problem. Now, all I have to do left is handle my deep link intent from the main activity of my app to launch the wanted feature. So this is pretty common code on which I check if I received 1, 2, or 3 as parameter of my intent. In order to test an app action, you need to install the App Actions Test Tool plugin in Android Studio. Here you can choose what intent you want to test and type a parameter. So let's enter the wanted feature and type 3 in the feature section. And here's what we get. I launch the app action from the test tool, the assistant shows up, and my feature is directly displayed. Here you can see that when I press the back button from my feature, I return on the main activity, but that's just because my deep link is set on this activity. But I could have set the deep link on the feature activity if I wanted. Okay, so this is nice, but the interaction is quite simple. We barely see the assistant, so can I avoid launching my app? Sure. So let's display a little something within the assistant between the invocation and the launching of my feature. How are we gonna do this? With Android slices. If you don't know about slices, it's a UI kind of card that you can use to display parts of your app, mainly in the assistant. On this example, we can see that when the user asks about his bank account, the assistant doesn't open the bank app, but instead directly shows the request data from the app into a slice. The user can then open the app if he wants to see more by clicking the Open App button in the slice. So how does it work? Let's go back to the diagram from earlier, where the app was launching a feature from a deep link. Now we're gonna update the actions.xml file to specify that the fulfillment mode is a slice, so that the app can send the slice data to be displayed by the assistant. Let's update the actions.xml file. Now the fulfillment mode is a slice, and the URL template is updated to match a slice URI, still containing the feature name parameter. We must just add a slice provider, which I won't show here in details, but just so you have an idea, I just matched the given feature name parameter to build a slice with the feature 3 title, subtitle, image, and pending intent. This is the intent that will be triggered when the user clicks the Open App button in the slice. So this is the result. Once again, I triggered the action from the test tool, but now I have a slice with the proper data displayed into the assistant. And when I click Open App, I'm redirected to my feature. It's also good to know that since it's currently in developer preview, you can't directly deploy your action to production, but you can still submit a deployment request form after that you ensure that your action met some specific requirements so that Google can approve or reject it. Yeah, that's better. Now we can have a small interaction into the assistant after the initial invocation, but can I have a proper talk with the assistant? Can I exchange questions and answers with it? Yeah, sure. As I said before, app actions only allow us to give orders to the assistant, but these are not conversations. We can't really distinguish the start from the end of the interaction. To build conversation-like interaction, we need to step a bit out of the mobile-only action and use conversational actions. So now I'm going to take a little sip of water, excuse me. Okay. So the conversational actions allow us to build custom experiences, as in conversations, with the assistant. You will see that this is not really related to Android, but I find them really fun to use because they allow us to do pretty much anything we want. And of course, you can still use them from your smartphone. So let's check them out. Let's take this example. I want to build an action that's going to ask me for a number and then return a fact about that number to me. How are we going to do this? That's where conversational actions are really fun and allow lots of freedom. They work with custom intents that are linked to custom fulfillment as webhooks. These webhooks trigger cloud functions written in JavaScript on Firebase, in which we can do pretty much anything we want, like calling an API, for instance. Let me show you. Here we have a user, the surface, where the answers will be displayed. Here, an Android device. The assistant, Dialogflow, which is an online service for conversational interfaces, and Firebase. When the user starts the conversation by saying, Google, talk to my action, the assistant transforms its request into text and invokes what's called an agent on Dialogflow. This agent triggers the start of the conversation by telling the assistant to display, welcome, what number do you want to know about? Then the user gives a request containing a number, which is transmitted by the assistant to Dialogflow agent, who matches it with a custom intent that will trigger a webhook on Firebase. In the cloud function, we call an API with the received number to build a response that will be finally displayed and said to the user by the assistant. Wow, that seems lots of work, right? Well, not really. I would even say that it's kind of easy thanks to Dialogflow. Third thing we need to do is to create a project on the actions on Google Console. This will also create a project on Firebase where the cloud functions will be deployed later on. From this project, we can create a new custom intent that will automatically initialize an agent on Dialogflow. Then, in the newly created Dialogflow agent, we're going to handle different intents that will be used to match incoming requests from the assistant. We have a default fallback intent used when the vocal request cannot be matched to anything. A default welcome intent that is triggered when the user first invokes the action. It is this intent that will start the conversation by telling the assistant to say welcome and stuff. And a custom number request intent that we have added to handle when the user gives a number. This one is associated with a machine learning model that is trained with phrases we provide. These phrases are those we expect the user to say, like, tell me about the number 5, or I want to know about the number 2. As you can see, the Dialogflow automatically recognizes an entity in these phrases. Here, the number entity. This is what will be used to identify and parse the parameters of the user's request for this intent. This one is already provided by Dialogflow among a few others, but it's good to know that you can also create your own entities. Finally, this intent is also the one that is linked to a cloud function through a webhook so that the API can be called with the received number. We must then deploy a cloud function to Firebase through command line. I'm not going to explain the whole JavaScript code here because this is not the point of this talk, but just so you have a quick idea. In here, we have a function that handles our custom number request intent and that receives the number as parameter. Then we call the API with that parameter, the numbers API.com. Get the data from the API, and then close the conversation after having displayed it. Okay, nice, but the end of the conversation is kind of harsh here. Can I keep the conversation going? Yeah, of course. In order to do that, we can use follow-up intents. These are intents that are linked to existing intents on Dialogflow, and that can handle what can come after that they are triggered. Let's say that after the assistant gave me a fact, I wanted to ask me if I want another fact about another number. I wanted to say, is there another number you want to know about? If I say yes, it must ask with a specific question like, okay, so what other number do you want to know about? And if I say no, it must say goodbye and end the conversation. So first I'm going to update my cloud function. I now want to display the fact, then ask a new question and suggest possible answers. That will be displayed as clickable chips into the assistant above the keyboard. Then I must add 2 follow-up intents on my custom number request intent on the Dialogflow agent to handle the possible answers that I should receive directly after my fact has been displayed. It will go like this. First, after that I started my conversation, I'm going to ask the assistant for a number. So I'm going to say, tell me about the number 2. This will trigger my custom number request intent so that the assistant can give me a fact, ask a new question, and suggest answer. I will say yes, which will trigger the yes follow-up intent and display a new question. What other number do you want to know about? So I'm going to ask for a new number, which will again trigger the number request intent as before, a question and a suggestion. And then I'm going to say no, which will trigger the no follow-up intent, display goodbye, and end the conversation. Wow, this is really nice, but a little bit poor visually compared to the slides we've used previously. Can I display graphical elements here? Sure. The conversational actions can be used with different rich responses. We can use cards, carousels, lists, and so on. Here I want to update my action to display the fact in a card with an image. Well, then I just need to add a little bit of code in the building of my response in the cloud function, nothing more. I just display a basic card object configured with the fact, and that's it. So here's the final result of my conversational action tested directly on my phone. I hope that the GIF is fluid. Then I say yes. I give him another number. And then I say no. And the conversation ends. Once a conversational action is built, you can submit it to deployment, but there's a huge list of requirements, so you have to meet to improve your chances to get an improvement, such as checking that the action is well recognized by Google, follow-up guidelines on your naming, use cards, suggestion shifts, and so on. Of course, there's a lot more that you can do with conversational actions, like handling sounds that you want to play in the assistant, data storage between conversations. For instance, you can ask for the user's Google account name so that the assistant welcomes you by saying your name across conversations. You can also build more complex graphical displays. For your information, there's an awesome code lab on the official documentation that builds a whole hangman game only by using graphical responses. Or you can also build your conversational actions from scratch with the Actions SDK, but this implies that you provide your own natural language understanding solution, which is what's used to transform user requests into JSON objects. But Dialogflow does that for us very well, so you should probably use it for most cases. A few takeaways. We have seen the app actions that enable you to extend your Android app reach into the assistant by launching a feature or displaying app data with slices. We've also seen the conversational actions that are conversation with the assistant based on webhooks, and it's not specific to mobile. Also, it's fairly simple to build, but it seems kind of hard to get your action to production, especially for app actions. And most of all, it gives a lot of freedom with the cloud functions. There's really lots to explore and experiment, so I hope that you will be thrilled to try it yourself. If you want to know more, I have published 2 articles on the Octo technology blog explaining the same examples that we've seen here, but with more details. Thank you very much. Opera. So, first question. I don't know how much time do I have left. The use of Cloud Function is not always free, according to the quota. Can I use my own server, or the use of Cloud Function is mandatory? I think it is mandatory, but I'm not really sure. All the documentation that I've seen is based on Cloud Function, so I recommend that you go check the documentation if you want to know more about that. Sorry. Next question. If the app has two-factor auth, then how could it be handled? Any suggestions? I've seen some documentation, again, about authentication, but I don't know more. The main goal of the talk is really to see the basics, so that the Google Assistant seems less mysterious, but I don't know that much. Are slices still in developer preview? Good question. Actually, I don't know, because I've used it. This is not the main point of what I've experimented. So once again, I don't know, sorry. How to manage several languages? Actually, app actions are, I could only test them by configuring my assistant to English. So I know that you can select a few languages when you create an action, but I've not seen anything about handling different languages. What are the best usages of Google Assistant you have seen on popular apps? Well, this is the point of the talk, is that most of the actions that I've seen on Google Assistant are app actions, like launching Spotify, launching Google Maps and stuff. It is mainly used to launch apps with this feature, these parameters, but I've not really found popular usages for conversational actions. So this is why I encourage everyone to go and try to do funny stuff. Do you know if French language is available for app actions? No, I couldn't manage to make French work, so maybe in the future. And last question, since you are using Intent to communicate, do you think it will be possible to interact with an overlay bubble PIP app? I'm not sure I have all the, the inputs to answer this question, sorry. But I don't think so. Okay, so thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.